Now that you guys are basically experts in biotech, we're going to present to you why we believe that this represents a unique opportunity. So this company that sits right in our backyard over in northeast Minneapolis is a huge conglomerate that has solid management, great product lines, but also represents a significant investment opportunity. Good evening, I'm Chris Lau from the University of Minnesota, and along with Leo, Rohit, and Dylan, we will be walking you through our analysis of Bio-Techne. So, on January 17th, we initiated coverage on Bio-Techne when the stock price was listed at $162 a share. We believe that the market had significantly undervalued the price at that date, primarily because they were undervaluing the potential growth opportunities in the genomics and diagnostics division. We are extremely bullish on this division and believe that there is strong growth. And as a result, we've initiated a buy recommendation and a stock price of $201.
So the way that we approached Bio-Techne was to really split it up into two buckets. Their legacy protein sciences and diagnostics division, and their new diagnostics and genomics division. So this legacy business, the way that the majority of this is coming from R&D Systems, which produces protein reagents, and they have 42% market share, really sticky. They also have their simple Western products and their illicit product. Now, these are really present in every professional research institution in the United States. So students are trained on these, and when they enter the private sector, they really demand to still be using these products. And so what this shows is that really Bio-Techne has these three main components of that business. And what this is showing is really they own the entire value chain from the beginning of the process through the quality control of those machines that I just touched on. So going forward, and really the engine of growth behind looking at their new products division comes from Chuck, the new CEO coming in 2015. So he has a playbook of expansion through inorganic growth and has shown this at 3M and Thermo Fisher. And thankfully, at Bio-Techne, he's gotten to work since coming on. So I want to touch on these two recent acquisitions. ACD, which was bought in August 2016 for $250 million, focuses on what's called CAR T cell therapy. Now this is, if you ask any doctor around, they'll say that this is really the future of healthcare. What it's doing is, instead of treating your cancer with chemotherapy or with radiation, they take your own cells, manipulate them, and put them back in to have your own body fight this disease. Really cool. The other acquisition that they recently brought on board is Exosome DX. Also for $250 million this last August of 2018. What this does is, instead of testing for your prostate cancer by taking a needle and taking a biopsy, this just uses your bodily fluids to test for the presence of prostate cancer. So now that you've known a little bit about Bio-Techne, let's zoom out and look at the entire industry sort of as a whole.
Thank you, Dylan. The protein science industry is mature and has become fairly saturated in the US with few large companies. And in the diagnostic industry, we see the market of controls and calibrators, which is fairly flat. And while the market for diagnostic instrument continues to see growth, by 2024, the in vitro diagnostic is expected to generate annual sales of $79.6 billion. And major trends of these industries are the development of biomarkers, liquid biopsy, and companion diagnostics, which are imaging tools. Genomics is widely considered as one of the most rapidly growing industry in the healthcare sector. The global market of genomics is expected to be worth about $27.6 billion by 2025 and grow with an annualized rate of 14% for the next several years. Personalized medicine is expected to grow at an annualized rate of 11% for the next 5 years, while in the pharmacogenomics, the CAR T cell therapy is expected to grow an annualized rate of 51% from the period 2018-2030.
We believe that based on Bio-Techne's competitive advantage, they're positioned well to take advantage of this market opportunity in genomics that Leo has just laid out. So because of that, we have forecasted a shift in their product mix through 2018 to focus more on the diagnostics and genomics. And this is primarily driven, as you can see here, by their growth in the genomics division. So in our forecast, we did make a few key assumptions. The first being that gross margins are going to trend upwards for the next 10 years. This trend is approximately going to reach management's estimate of 80%, and that's their goal long term, primarily because we believe that it has a favorable product mix in our revenue, and the products that they're shifting into have much higher gross margins than their current product mix. Additionally, we believe that in the short term, we're going to see a tick up in SG&A costs, primarily as they onboard a lot of these acquisitions, and they'll eventually fall down to more historical levels. These two factors, coupled with our projections for revenue, we believe are going to be the main drivers of these operating margins. A couple key things to note in our financial analysis. The first is we did make some adjustments to our forecasted cash flows based on adjustments to cost of goods sold and SG&A as a result of various GAAP purchase accounting. So we backed those out to really adjust for what the true cash flows are going to be in the next 10 years. Additionally, we chose not to adjust for stock-based compensation. We understand that this is a slight divergence from many analysts in the industry, but we believe since how the compensation structure is currently laid out, this represents a significant cost, and as such, we believe that there is a fair proxy for the cash flows that will be going forward in the future.
So 201. So how did we arrive at a price of $201 for this company? For this, we looked at 4 valuation approaches, one of them being the standard discounted cash flows, the other being EV upon EBITDA multiple, the EV upon EBIT multiple, and the P multiple. So how do you arrive at the discounted cash flow? Every discounted cash flow model has numbers, but what really matters is the story behind the numbers. And as Chris pointed out, the story for Bio-Techne is that we expect the company to have good organic growth in their legacy protein sciences business and good organic and inorganic growth in their new upcoming genomics business. For this very reason, we use double-digit growth rates for the first 5 years and a low double-digit growth rates for the next 5 years, and we finally tapered it off using a 4.5% terminal growth rate for the company. We also used a WACC of 8.86% for this company, which gave us a target price of $201 for Bio-Techne. We also used a multiple valuation approach for this company, and for this we looked at many competitors of the company, such as Abbott, Siemens, GE Health Life Sciences, and others. But this approach gave us a price range for Bio-Techne ranging from $91 to $239, which is a pretty high range. Which was primarily because none of these companies that we compared Bio-Techne to can really be called comparables from a multiple valuation approach. From the multiples valuation approach. So this is the reason we did not assign high weights to this approach of multiple valuation for this company, and we mainly use discounted cash flow to arrive at a stock price of $201.
So before we leave you tonight, we just want to give a quick update on how the stock has performed since we initiated our coverage. So as you can see here, it's performed quite well, and there are 3 key events that we find that are driving this performance. The first is, in late January, a national cancer organization published that they put their stamp of approval on Exosome's current product, which we believe is going to shift up many of the cash flows that we forecasted. Additionally, a few days later, the company released their Q2 earnings, which showed that the company is performing very well, and actually their core protein business outperformed what many analysts had projected. And last Friday, CMS released a proposal that could potentially provide insurance. CMS released a proposal that would give reimbursement to many CAR T cell therapies, such as the ones that ACD currently provides. So with that, we believe that the market is appropriately adjusted for many of our current assumptions, but we still believe that there's some growth potential in this stock. And with that, we would like to take any questions that you guys have.
Hi, Lindsay Strickland, RBC Wealth Management. My question has to do with the proxy statement. So did you look to see how management is bonused in terms of what metrics are important for them to reach in order to get their bonus on an annual basis or longer term?
That's a great question. Rohit, did you have thoughts? Otherwise, I can take it. So we took a look at how management's current compensation structure is. I don't have the specifics on what targets they needed to reach in order to receive a lot of that compensation. So no, I guess the answer would be we haven't looked at that detail.
Okay. And on the revenue recognition, how the company gets paid. So, and the company, not the management team, but you know, whether it's based on the consumables or on instrumentation, can you talk a little bit about that, if it's a subscription model or a reoccurring basis, those type of details?
Do you have any?
Yeah, so with sort of what I mentioned with the protein consumables, how students are trained on these, and then once they get into the private sector, they really still sort of demand it. The way that I sort of thought about it, to really just bring it home, is I sort of thought of like paper towels. Do you really plan on buying paper towels, or is it something that you always have to have in your home to do things that come up? So that protein business, in order to do any sort of research, they are necessary to have in the lab. So whereas there might not be subscriptions, there will constantly be re-ups.
Okay, great. Julie Gray, Columbia Threadneedle. I understand that a lot of the growth in this business has come from China, so I'd like to understand more what's driving that and how you see potential increased the tariff situation playing out in your forecast.
That's a great question. And I'm going to let Leo first talk about the industry, and then we'll bring it back to company specific.
China is one of the growing market in which biotechnology is really working on, and it's expanding very quickly. And it's a very good question, because since the new tariff, there is for sure an impact that we did not have analyzed well, but I can definitely, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that we're familiar with many of the tariffs that are being imposed currently, and as they're currently situated, we don't think that there's a significant amount of exposure to them, especially with tariff talks tapering off, and we don't see that as a long-term impact in our 10-year forecast. That being said, we are familiar with many risks of going into China, and especially concerning IP, and with a very IP-heavy company, we are comfortable with how management is handling it. When we spoke to Chuck, he actually mentioned that he's out in China every couple of months and has a very strong relationship and is creating partnerships to avoid any conflicts in IP infringement.
And to just bring a little bit more comfortability with management, when Chuck was at Thermo Fisher, he did do an expansion into the Asia Pacific market. So he's done this before.
You use the analogy of products that you use in your home, but I'm still less clear on what exactly is their competitive advantage and what is the value that they provide to their customers.
That's also a great question. I'm going to let Dylan jump in on a little bit of that.
Sure. So really, whenever there's any sort of biotechnical research, whether it's at a university, at hospitals doing primary research, small firms, maybe based around the Boston area, who are really trying to work on these protein manipulations. At any sort of research that they do, they'll go one slide forward, actually. They, in order to find that protein, they need to use a product made by Bio-Techne to separate that protein out. And then if they need more of that protein, which they will, Bio-Techne also makes the cell cultures to make more of that. And then they feed that into a cartridge, which Bio-Techne makes, they feed it into a machine to do an analysis, which Bio-Techne also makes. And so really that full value chain and owning all of that, at some point in their research, even if they're using a different, if they're not using an R&D system reagent, eventually they're going to have to touch a Bio-Techne product.
And further expanding on that, in regards to their competitive advantage, they have some of the smartest people in the industry, many of them from the University of Minnesota, that they have on staff, and they're able to retain, they're able to retain a lot of this talent, though. And they've become a market leader, especially when it comes to some of the automation devices that they have. For example, the simple Western device, historically, when you did a Western blot, it's a very manual process, and you're dropping proteins into cartridges, essentially. And now what you're able to do is plug that into a machine, walk away, go get lunch, and 2 hours later, it's done, it's accurate, and it's really solving a lot of issues. And Bio-Techne is the leader in this, so that is one of their main competitive advantages. kind of getting back to their core business.
In recent years, we've seen profit margins erode as they've been making a lot of acquisitions. Your forecast has margins going back up. Do you see them continue to make acquisitions? And if so, how will they overcome this drag on margins we've seen in recent years?
I think that's a phenomenal question. No, we are not modeling in any future acquisitions just because that is very difficult to do. And as a result of that, we do see the margins going up as a natural progression as they are able to eliminate some of the redundancies and consolidate a lot of those synergies. With that being said, we do realistically see that Bio-Techne is going to continue to consolidate, mostly because that's kind of Chuck's playbook. And additionally, they've become a conglomerate. They've become almost a GE for protein sciences, and we believe that that's a fundamental part of their business and actually leads into some of their competitive advantage.
If you could go forward 2 slides. Sorry, one more. In this bottom right-hand corner, the most recent acquisition, or sorry, the second most recent acquisition that they made was ACD Technologies on the far right there. This is sort of what they call their flywheel of their genomics division. So each one of those blue boxes are a portion on that flywheel that they own, they have IP around. And so any acquisitions that they make going forward is really complete the parts of that flywheel that they don't yet have.
Clement Lau from Winslow Capital. Just curious if Abcam, based in the United Kingdom, is it a competitor of Bio-Techne? If yes, what are the strengths and weaknesses of Bio-Techne over Abcam?
That's a great question. You would like to?
Well, the Abcam is a life science e-commerce company, so it's mainly focused on part of the industries in which Bio-Techne is active. So yeah, it's a competitor, but it's competing only in some industries, which not on all industries in which Bio-Techne is active.
Okay, great. And then on free cash flow, looks like consensus is expecting around 15% free cash flow margin for the current fiscal year. That compares to 20 to 30% in the past 3 to 5 years. Do you expect that to be just a temporary decline, or it's more structural?
I definitely believe that's going to be a temporary decline. A lot of it is because a lot of these acquisitions, for example, Exosome's a great example of this, are currently making no margin. They have no money coming in, and so as they build on some of these acquisitions and some of these key events that we highlighted really take hold and the market realizes them, eventually we are going to see those cash flows grow at a much more significant rate.
So this exosome approval, which you highlighted, what is your view as far as whether or not that gets Medicare approval, and how have you factored that into your modeling?
I'll touch this. I know Dylan's got some thoughts on it as well. So our model has forecasted that Exosome is going to obtain approval for reimbursement, primarily through CMS, and then the other insurers, private insurers, will follow CMS. Our timeline for that is we expect it to happen by April at the latest. If they don't, we would have to reassess our model. That doesn't mean that Exosome is going to start generating positive cash flows by April, but we would see that as a negative sign or signal to the market if they are not able to achieve that goal.
And really what they do, the liquid biopsy, that's a really hot place to be right now. A lot of people right now, they're sort of getting to that age where that becomes a relevant procedure that they could undergo. They've grown up watching their parents have a bucket of pills they take everything, so they don't want to do that. And then they hear about, oh, you're going to put a bunch of needles in me? I don't want that. And so to have something where you just have some bodily fluids, just like a blood draw taken, and have that be done outside of your body is just infinitely more attractive than undergoing a super invasive procedure. And so, whereas, as Chris was saying, that it won't ramp up right away to be full cash flow positive, that the uptake will be significant enough to really make it better.
And going off that, there is a contingent plan if they're not able to get CMS approval. Many markets, especially outside of the US, are willing to pay for this. So Exosome currently offers their product for about $500. A lot of people are willing to buy that product for $500 so they don't have to risk going into septic shock through a botched biopsy.
I have another question about, they've been very active.